Welcome to Circle the Wagons for week one. This is where I want to provide a summary of what we looked at this week. This week we surveyed issues related to the authorship of John's Gospel. Now we summarized what we know about the author with the following statements and deducements. He's an apostle. He's an apostle that Jesus loved. He's one of the 12, but cannot be Peter, Philip, Thomas, Judas Iscariot, or Judas, son of James. He's one of the 7 in John 21:2, but not Peter, Thomas, or Nathaniel. He's either John the son of Zebedee, but not James's brother, or one of the 2 other disciples mentioned in 21:2. This means that from the apostolic list found in the Synoptics and Acts, only the following names remain. You have Levi or Matthew, Simon the Zealot, James the son of Alphaeus, and John the son of Zebedee. We can eliminate Matthew because he already has a gospel associated with him. We eliminate Simon the Zealot, James the son of Alphaeus, because no one has ever mentioned one of them as a possible author. So we're left with John the son of Zebedee. If we highlight the information related to the place of writing, Irenaeus mentioned John as being in Ephesus in Asia. No other place is supported by the early church fathers. The most likely date for the writing of the gospel seems to be after the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 by that Roman general Titus. The martyrdom of Peter is mentioned in 21:19 and hence at a date after AD 65. So it seems logical to place a date about 80, 87, or 96 during the reign of Domitian. We have found coins with his name and identifies this Roman as Dominus Deus, Lord and God. Does that remind you of something Thomas once said? The emphasis of John's Gospel appears to be universal, with another emphasis on the Jewish rejection of Jesus in the first test of the Gospel. These elements seem to indicate the intended audience was both Jewish and Gentiles, the Gentiles who had been attached to Judaism or attracted to Judaism in the diaspora. Ultimately, John writes to the church at large, not just the Ephesian church. Now, the purpose of the gospel appears to be related to the opportunity to evangelize the Jews with the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. The question looming over everyone was, what will happen to Judaism? And so John sees it as an opportunity to encourage the Jews to recognize Jesus as their Messiah, along with those interested Gentiles. It's impossible to delve deeply into the meaning and purpose of John's use of Logos in relation to Christ in the prologue. However, at a minimum, St. John wants to connect God's act of creation through his word and his act of providing salvation through the incarnate word, Jesus. Perhaps the strongest reference to the use of Logos comes from the Old Testament. God sent his word to accomplish his purposes in Isaiah 55:10-11. The term Logos appears in John in a Christological sense only in the prologue. Logos functions as an umbrella term for Jesus and the rest of the gospel. As the gospel progresses into chapter 2, the reader is introduced to John the Baptist, who is a forerunner of Christ. John had been sent by God in 1:6 and become a witness to the light, was not the light himself, and acknowledged the preeminence of the one coming after him. Now, some theorize that 136 through 51 can be divided into an entire week of Jesus' ministry, and so this is what they say. Day 1 was John's testimony to Jesus. Day 2 was John's encounter with Jesus. We find the term the next day. Day 3, John refers 2 disciples to Jesus, and again the next day. Day 4, Andrew's introduction of his brother Peter to Jesus. Day 5, Philip and Nathaniel follow Jesus, and again you have the reference to the next day. And day 7, we have the wedding at Cana, and it says on the 3rd day. So perhaps we are looking at just a week here. The early chapters introduce us to the first and second signs. In chapter 2, 1-13, you have the wedding at Cana, where the waters turn into wine. And then 2:13-25, the cleansing of the temple. Now, John 3 introduces us to Nicodemus in 3:1-21. Jesus has this interview with the Pharisee. He tells Nicodemus he must be born again to enter heaven in 3:3. We then have a flashback to John the Baptist in 3:22-36 before we go on to the interview with the woman at the well, or Samaritan woman at the well. Here we learn about John's continued baptisms to this point. Now we see John the Baptist presented as the best man in 329 who rejoices with the bridegroom without any sense of rivalry or competitiveness. This is the lesson the disciples needed to learn, and I'm afraid it's a lesson that we all need to learn. May the Lord bless you.